Well, good morning, my Algebra students. Let's go through your study guide today, okay? So, on number 1, it asks us to plot and label, right? If we don't label, then we don't know which point is which. So, on here, we are simply, let me just grab this real quick, simply starting at our point of origin, and then we are going over 2, -2, and up a +4. And then for our B, we are going over 3 and up 5, right? Number 2 asks us to say the range and domain of these points right here. And we know the domain is all the x's and the range is all the y's. And we write these as a set. We do not need to repeat anything that's repeated. But we do notice that because the x's have repeated, it means that they have more than one y value. So this is not a function, okay? On number 3, it asks us which one of these would be this scenario to the side here. And we can see that it starts with an increase. So I'm looking for the ones that say increase. And so it's either between A or D, right? B and C are out. The next thing that happens is it's constant for a while. And A says it decreases, so we know that one's out. But D says it stays constant. And then we double check the last phase of this graph. It says it increases rapidly, so we know that D is the correct answer. On number 4, it asks us which is the domain, and it's a multiple choice question, but it may just be a written question for you on the test. So again, we know that the domain is our x values, and we write this as a compound inequality. Reading and writing from the variable's perspective. So when I look at my x values, I see that it stops at 2 and also stops at -4, right? So I know that x can be less than or equal to 2 or greater than, because I read from the variable's perspective, greater than -4, and that's what it is. It's greater than -4 and less than 2. So it's really an and inequality, right? Leading us to the answer is A. On number 5, it asks us for the range, and our range is the y values. So obviously B is the set of the range with 0, 5, 6, and 7. On question number 6, it gives us a set of values and we need to find the function. We know that it's a function because there's a constant change going up by 4 and that the x is not repeating, right? So now we know we can write the function. If I add consecutively, that means I'm actually multiplying. And like we've talked about in class, so I know it's 4 times what? But then I have to wonder, what does it take to add to equal 8? And so I know 4 times 1 is 4, plus 4 equals 8. So B is our function rule. And you could check that. Let's just say if we check it on number 5, on step number 5, 5 times 4 is 20, plus 4 is 24. So we know it's right. On number 7, it gives us a function rule. And we know that f of x is y because the function of x is to solve for a y, right? That's why y is dependent on x. So in this function rule, it says f of x is this function rule, 6x minus 1. Find f of x if or when x is 4. So then you're finding the function of f of 4. And you're just substituting in for the x value in both places. So f of 4 is 6 times 4 minus 1, which is 24, minus 1, which is 23. So when x is 4, y is 23, right? And it's a coordinate point because every coordinate point is a solution. And then we try it again when x is negative 5. So f of negative 5 is 6 times negative 5 minus 1. Negative 5 times negative 6 is negative 30, minus 1 is negative 31. So when x is negative 5, y is negative 31. And now we have these two good points, and we could graph them on a graph and have all of the solutions. But we'll get to that more in chapter 4. On number 8, it asks us which is the dependent variable. So if you get stuck on these kind of things, just make a little graph off to the side like I did here. I know I have my y is always a dependent, and my x is always independent, and then I would graph this out. I know that the money is always y because it's always dependent on something that you're selling or buying or something like that. So that means bottles, if I buy like one bottle, it's going to be a certain amount, and 2 bottles, it's going to be another amount, and so forth. So I know the money is dependent on how many bottles of soda I buy. And so it only asks for the dependent variable, which is the cost of the soda. And we talked about this many times, that the money is always the y. Number 9, Joey has $200 in his savings account and he saved $75 per week. Now we have done these every single chapter. In chapter 1, we found when somebody was equal to somebody else. And then we found in chapter 2 when one had more than the other. Now we're just realizing that this is the same thing as writing a function rule. So if I do it in chapter 1, I know that Joey has $200 and he's saving $75 per week. And in chapter 3 now, we know this is a function rule, right? Where it's actually f of w, you could say f of w equals 75 times w plus 200, right? But it's okay to do f of x, or you could do f of w. It doesn't matter. You could have just done f of x equals 75x plus 200, as well as y equals 75x plus 200. It's really up to you, but as long as you understand that that's what a function rule is. Now, as we did in Crossing the River, except you came up with your own table and your own data, we are looking at scenarios and finding the function rule and seeing if it fits a certain scenario. So in this one, we have a large convention center with rectangular tables, and we're seeing how many chairs can fit around these banquet tables. And at the first step, with one table, it shows that 14 people can sit there. And with 2, you actually have to count these out. It's 26. And with 3, it's 38. So at number 10, it asks us to complete the table, which we can do because we know it's just going up by 12 every time. On number 11, it asks us to write the rule. Well, because I know it's 12 times the x value, I know that'll be 12 times 12. 12 times 1 is 12, plus 2 equals 14. So my function rule is f of x equals 12x plus 2, or I could say y equals 12x plus 2, right? On 13, it gives us a scenario. If we have 11 tables pushed together, will there be enough for 133 people, right? You could also have done this like this. 133 equals 12x, or 12 times 11 plus 2. And this is a question mark. Will it equal? And it will not, because you get 133 is not equal to, my bad. It is equal. Oh, it's not equal. Okay, sorry. Oop. I forgot to add my 2. You know, teachers make mistakes too, just saying 2. And this is 4. Just fix it. So, going back to the question, is, so we know that they have, when there's 11 tables, there's 134 seats. Or if you did it this way, when you put in for y, will it be more? Well, it is enough. So you would actually write it as an inequality, right? Because this side has to be equal to or more than. And so you would say yes. Yes, they have enough, and they have 1 left over. Plus 1, right? Sometimes people say, no, it's not the exact amount, but that's not true. You just want to know, is there enough for 133 people? Yes, there is enough, plus an extra. All right, so I added a couple extra on your big quiz test / big quiz test. There's only 12 questions. That's why it's not a full test. But I added more practice problems just for you to practice how to write these out. So on this one, it kind of slows it down a little bit. I have toothpicks that we are making a little design out of. And on the first step, there's 6 toothpicks. On the second, there's 9. And on the third, there's 12. This is enough for us to see the pattern of going up by 3 each time, right? And then we write our function rule. We know that this is multiplying consecutively. So 3 times 1 plus something equals 6. And we find that that's 3 times x plus 3, right, will equal 6. So we finish the table off here, find our function rule, and we go ahead and graph those points, right? And on the last example, it gives you even more. It says 1 desk holds 6 students, 2 has 10, 3 has 14, so 4, well, it's going up by 4 every time, so we know that has to be 18. And from there we can write our function rule and go ahead and plot that, right? Then it asks you a question. Sarah says that 47 students can sit around 11 desks. Without drawing them, explain if you know she's right or wrong. So the graph shows that at 11, there's 46, right? But maybe you're like, well, this graph is like in between points, so we're not absolutely sure. So you use the function rule to check, right? When x is 11, we substitute that in. We get 11 times 4 is 44, plus 2 is 46. Again, we see that it matches the graph. And so how many students can sit around 11 desks? 46. So sadly, no, Sarah is not correct. All right, you guys, I will see you in class, and I'm sure you'll do great. Talk to you later. Bye.